This is the Infant Studies Center. We study all aspects of infant development, but we primarily look at language. We're very interested in how language acquisition begins. We study what babies learn about language before they begin to speak. And in fact, the learning that babies do in the first months of their life is essential for language to emerge later. We love to interact with babies just as soon as they're born or very shortly thereafter, because it gives us an opportunity to see how the brain and the mind are prepared from birth to learn language.
Language, like brains, is built from the bottom up. It begins with simple vocalization that happens within the first few days of life. And over the first year of life, the ability to understand and use language obviously develops exponentially. It just takes off in that first year of life. But over that first year of life, there's plenty of opportunity for this kind of back and forth exchange that we think of as human conversation to happen between parent and child in a sort of early, very simple way.
Babies seem to understand so much more than they can say. All of us do. All of us understand more words than we're able to pull up when we're speaking to one another. And I think it's just particularly pronounced in language acquisition in most cases.
We've looked at children as incomplete. They're born sentient, aware, knowing, feeling, loving, expecting a relationship. We're nothing without our relationships. We're defined by our relationships, and that relationship already started in the uterus.
Babies, like all human beings, come with abilities to detect emotion. So even during the first year of life, a young child, an infant, can be aware of emotions around conflict, can hear the difference in tone in a voice that is yelling or conflictive, as opposed to a voice that is nurturing and kind. And I would also add that we know that that kind of hearing and that kind of assessment of human interaction doesn't just begin at the time of birth, but actually happens during the prenatal period as well. We know, for example, that babies who have spent the 9 months of gestation in their mother's belly can recognize their mother's voice as opposed to other voices that he or she may have heard during that period of time in the womb.
Newborn babies are listening to the world around them even when they're asleep. They're learning about language, they're learning about familiar voices, and you can detect that in a sleeping newborn. Mothers and fathers can know that when they are able to make their baby comfortable, they're fed, they're clothed, they're feeling safe, that they can get into that quiet, alert state. And that's when they learn about the world around them.
Baby only has means to signal. So it cries, it sleeps, it seems restless, it bats its arms around. And in looking at the infant, the mother then decides, oh, I think the baby's hungry. I'll try it. Because when you have a baby, what things can there be? There can be wanting to play, there can be being hungry, there can be needing a diaper change. Mom will go through the laundry list of things. I try this, I'll try that, I'll try this, in the hopes that something will work out. It's not necessarily the words, but the tone that the baby is picking up. And over the days and weeks of saying these things, most mothers will find, gee, I walk into the room now and the baby stops crying. So clear the baby has identified the mother as being someone who can figure out most of the time well enough what the baby needs. Even within that short period of time, they've learned a lot because the parent has been able to communicate, you're distressed, don't worry, I'm going to figure it out.
The evidence from child development research is pretty clear. The earlier a child begins to experience intensive and sustained learning, the better off that child is going to be in terms of educational attainment for the rest of childhood and adolescence, in terms of the development of intellectual and cognitive ability. And we've talked about how children begin learning even in the first few months and years of life within their family. It's a learning environment that they experience. So it is certainly all to the good for children as early as 2 or 3 to come into a preschool environment and to begin to learn both cognitive skills, colors, sometimes the ability to have basic reading skills established. Importantly, beginning to learn how to interact with peers of their same age and understanding how social relationships work. So the evidence is certainly that children from all socioeconomic walks of life benefit from early education that begins to happen in the family in the first few years of life, but then can begin to happen and flourish even more in the preschool years and on into primary school.